Hi, this is Esther Lin, photographer for MMAfighting.com, and I'd like to share some images from my week in Rio de Janeiro for UFC 190. On our first day in Rio, we found ourselves on the famed Pepe Beach. When we arrived, I saw the sign that said Imprensa, or press, and it led to a porta potty. I giggled at the thought of such a small, smelly media room. Bantamweight title challenger Betch Correia took the stage and demonstrated a wide range of skills for the gathered fans. At the end, Correia waved the Brazilian flag around, almost as a reminder, this is my home, this is my country. Then, the legends showed up. Shogun hit pads with Rafael Cordeiro, then the man who owned the snack shop right here on Pepe Beach, local hero Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, arrived and the crowd doubled. But all the while, there was a tension, nervousness. The crowd was conserving energy while waiting in the hot sun. Then, they erupted. The day began with a cloudy haze, but by the time Ronda Rousey showed up, the sun shone through the canopy. Fans with homemade rowdy shirts and little kids on shoulders popped up with each camera phone raised into the air. The champ began her stretching routine, and the chants began. And the cheers continued. The fans kept their adoration up the entirety of Rousey's extensive display of striking and throws. There was a question of whether the Brazilian fans would cheer a foreigner, and that was answered very quickly. The fans were most excited to see Rousey, louder than I remember them being for Anderson Silva and even Nogueira. Rousey basked in the love, smile beaming brighter as the crowd grew louder. Audible shrieks and screams from the girls and women filled my eyes with tears. I was a little embarrassed to be shooting and crying. But it was incredible to witness idolatry for a female athlete whose central talent lay in utter destruction of her opponents. A little girl in the Nogueira camp ran up to Ronda for a hug. In the embrace, we got a peek of Rousey's raps, "My lovely father," written on them. Then Rousey continued to wow with a variety of exceedingly graceful somersaults. It was no exaggeration to say the fans were overcome with Ronda mania. Girls cried as the champ neared them, the kind of senseless worship usually reserved for pop stars. I don't know if I've seen people cry meeting other great prize fighters. I've seen people wait hours in the hot Vegas sun to see Floyd Mayweather, but this frenzy had an entirely different core emotion. I understood it so intimately. From the time I cried when Liz Carmouche and Ronda Rousey first walked out to the octagon, it was so personal to have a real-life tough woman, a superheroine who could rough up a thieving scoundrel. The next day, we piled into a hotel meeting room to get more interviews, respond to anything that was said or heard the day before on the beach. Rousey found herself in a giant scrum that never waned, while her opponent answered reporters' questions across the room. Even in this dimly lit room, Rousey shined. Then it was time for face-offs, and I was quite excited to see Claudia Gadelha welcome perennial top strawweight Jessica Aguilar to the UFC. Outside the main event, I was most looking forward to this bout.
I'll see how long I can hold a squat.
And then, Rousey and Correia wasted no time, the Brazilian challenger getting right into the champ's face. Even as they were asked to turn forward, they dared not break their stare. The belt was brought up and the camera shutters went into another frenzy. Cameramen jockeyed for position. Rousey's beaded top and leather pants were like a superhero outfit. I half expected them to be lined with some space-age bulletproof polymer. We went out for a walk after, and ran into Pat Cummins enjoying the Rio special, a little afternoon acai. We sent this photo to Ariel Helwani, whose flight was delayed coming in from New York, because he's such a big BB Suko's acai fan. On the morning of weigh-ins, I looked out to the giant rocks on the beach while we filmed our preview show. Rio de Janeiro certainly was a beautiful setting for a fight. At weigh-ins, it was entirely the Ronda Rousey show. Fans cheered for the countrywoman Correia, but not like they did for the champ. I can't imagine that felt good for Correia, and it certainly was the first time I'd truly heard a foreigner garnering more love than the home fighter. As they squared off, Correia yelled, teeth glinting at the champ, telling Rousey not to cry tomorrow when she loses, all the while fans chanted, "Vai morrer," which translates to "You're gonna die." It was unclear who that was directed at. But when Rousey turned to face the crowd, as she always has since Strikeforce, the HSBC arena went wild. White tried to stop her, but this is so smart of Rousey. This powerful pose forward is a chance for everyone to get that clean and clear image of the champion. It's lasting both for photos and in your mind. An impression of confidence and dominance, independent of your opponent. This is Rousey's assertion of her force. While waiting for our post-weigh-in team dinner with Ariel and Guilherme, I saw Ninja Hua waiting for his brother Shogun. I haven't seen Ninja since I worked at Elite XC. I have only a handful of photos with fighters. The old photo was taken at the airport after Ninja won the middleweight championship. On the plane, we even had the attendants announce his win over the PA and everyone clapped. I showed him this picture and he remembered me from way back then, so I thought we'd pose for a new photo, 8 years later. On fight night, fans filed into the arena with a definite buzz. Many groups stopped for photos along the large ramp leading into the doors. The inside of the HSBC arena was a festival. There were various stations for photos and games. Here, Eric Silva poses with fans in front of giant screens broadcasting Rousey's conquests. Fans pose for photos by every large image of Rousey. I'd not seen this kind of large-scale signage for any previous fights. In the arena, spirits were high as Brazilian Vitor Miranda finished Clint Hester. Then, Yuri Alcantara scored a fantastic win as well. However, the fight of the night for me would belong to Pat Cummins and Rafael Feijão. What nerves it is to watch two I would consider friends fighting. Coach Ryan Parsons said Cummins sparred with Shogun in training and was essentially in a real fight, Rafael Cordeiro joking that they should put the session into the Fight Finder. Pat's tooth came loose, they ended up with black eyes. But such adversity is forging of the toughness needed for a fight like this. The most impressive comeback is being in a close, brutal fight, fending off Feijão's battering strikes and still not be out. It is earned in the hardest way. Cummins ground through the blood pouring out of his face to defeat Feijão with elbows. That heartbreaking realization, waking to find that you've lost a fight, blood streaming down your face. Cummins let out an animal yell, ringing clearly in the now quiet arena. His utter relief and happiness in a difficult victory in enemy territory. As he passed, Cummins struck a pose and winked, or rather, tried to wink for the camera, but his eyes were so swollen, blood just kind of oozed out of his giant cuts, which is really just fantastic. Then, the next woman to face Joanna Jędrzejczyk would likely be decided here. Claudia Gadelha welcomed Jessica Aguilar to the UFC strawweight division with a barrage of punches, but not without taking a few hits herself. In the end, Gadelha proved herself and went straight to the microphone to ask for a rematch with the Polish champion. Then, in a short and violent turn, Bigfoot Silva takes out Soa Palele right in front of me. And then, another slugfest, because why not? Struve versus Big Nog was ridiculous. Later, Struve revealed he'd been throwing up all day from some apparent motion sickness picked up along the way to the arena, even vomiting backstage again just after the fight before being interviewed by Ariel Helwani. They traded endless, face-smashing shots. Regardless, the bout was its own battle, between legend and youth, and that was not lost on Stefan Struve. When the fight ended, he knelt in deference to Nogueira. Apparently, the Nogueira brothers decided they would both burn hot and bright tonight. Little Nog coming forward even into Shogun's powerful kicks, as if nothing could stop him. It was a thrilling bout, one that built a healthy momentum toward the main event. Fans booed whenever Shogun slowed the pace, but it was the smartest way for him to control the direction of the fight. In the end, Shogun earned his victory walking through flames, and that unadulterated joy, shared here with Coach Rafael Cordeiro, is sweeter for it. Time for the main event. Betch Correia entered the cage and took a lap, stopping to declare her presence and swing her sword high in the air, ready for the challenge ahead. However, Kohea had stopped in the red corner, and the referee went to inform her. Kohea then awkwardly jogged to the blue corner. The lights then dimmed, and Joan Jett began to blast. Ronda Rousey made her way to the cage with such fury, I could see her piercing stare even through all the hands that reached forward into the walkway. She moved quickly, an immense force on a gust of wind that sucked out the air as she passed. The lights surged and scanned around the arena. The fans chanted and cheered. I was giddy with anticipation as I pivoted to get this panoramic shot. As many fights as I've photographed, I still get excited. A fight like this, seeing Ronda Rousey headline fight, thrilled me. As Rousey crouched down in a stretch, a blue light hovered past her. It accentuated her icy, focused stare. When the round began, she marched forward. Rousey shot daggers from her eyes. I hate to disrespect any challengers, but the excitement in a Rousey fight is not who will win, but how will Rousey win? Within seconds, they were engaging. Rousey ate a punch but delivered so many more, she drove Kohea to the fence immediately. I couldn't see from my position what was happening, but I could hear the crowd reacting to every punch. I caught just a glimpse of the overwhelmed challenger clawing at Rousey's eye in desperate defense. Then, I waited for them to come around the corner as I switched cameras. And it was too late. When they finally came around the post, Kohea fell into my frame, face first onto the canvas. Big John McCarthy pulled Rousey off, swinging the champ away from the downed fighter, her smile apparent even as she was thrown out of my depth of field. Referee John McCarthy sat Kohea up as the crowd's cheers rose to a deafening point. I couldn't tell if Betch was aware of what had just happened. Rousey coldly glanced back, recalling the weigh-ins, and told Kohea not to cry. But then, when the wind sunk in, the killer was kind again, and her family entered the cage. Rousey embraced her mother and sisters, and all was right with the world. The enemy had been vanquished. As they interviewed the champ, belt across her waist, she watched the replay with concern and sympathy. I turned around. The fans were still applauding. Rousey emerged from the cage, victorious again. Adoration raining down from the stands, photographers pushing to get a clear view of the most dominant fighter on the planet. In the post-fight press conference, any trace of Rousey the Destroyer was completely gone, and she answered many questions with a smile and laugh. It was 3 a.m., but her elation was energy. At the end, I asked Ronda for a photo with the belt, and she obliged. Before the fights, she's often not thrilled to pose with it. But here, she's beaming with an innocent joy that belies the violence she'd committed to defend that gold. There was a purity in her knockout that must have been so delightful and satisfying. We squeezed into a bus full of UFC production folks for a ride back to the hotel at 5 a.m. As we pulled in, I went down to the beach to watch the sunrise and have a toast with some UFC employees. A dark indigo sky met with softly lapping waves. We chatted about the fights, reminisced on the many years we'd been on the road, speculated on our futures. Here we stood, at the start of another day, with the glow of having been witness to such a great night. This is Esther Lynn for MMAfighting.com, and thank you for watching.